G'day guys! In today's video we're having a look at the MetaBox Prime S, also known as PC70DP. Let's open it up and check it out. Before I open it up, let's have a look at the back here, which does have like a black, purpley satin kind of finish to it. Does look pretty plain, simple, not bad. Does almost have like a metallic look to it, but itself is just plastic. Even though you can open the 17.3 inch machine one-handed, it definitely feels like the hinges don't like it. They do feel rather stiff, and they do hold up to a particular height. When I open it up, first thing I notice, modular keyboard, which means it's nice and replaceable. Very large trackpad, slightly off-centered. Kind of curve your arms like this. But if we look up high, we see the star of the show, which is the 17.3 inch 100% Adobe RGB display. This particular one doesn't look overly bright. It definitely gets very bright, but there isn't a light directly above it. I found the gaming on this 60Hz panel to be not that great, especially if you're trying to play Battlefield. But if you're playing a slower paced platform game like Takes-Two, the vibrant screen is definitely worthwhile. Now let's turn off the lights and draw our focus down to the trackpad and the RGB keyboard. I'll talk about the keyboard in two different ways. One, the actual RGB control of it, where there are various patterns and effects, like most other keyboards these days, that you can select and change. You can have various stages of brightness, 4 stages of brightness, well, one including being off. But if we change it to say something like raining, and there's also a light bar that also moves across. The actual effects themselves are pretty cool, but if we look up, I found that the Per Lighting keyboard software to be not that great. So if I turn up the brightness just here for us, so we can see what I'm doing, and if we go keyboard and want to set a simple, well, per key, it's fine. So if I make these keys down here, these colors, you can go right ahead. But I don't know why, but I was not able to find a way to select all the keys to make it all one simple color. I have found it in the keyboard effects. If I turn them down to slower effects, I'm then able to change it. So, a bit of a hit and miss with it, but overall mostly positive. Now let's talk about the keys themselves. So the keys themselves do feel rather squishy, and a bit of keyboard movement. You can see as I'm pushing down there, around here it's kind of moving as well. But I do find the keys just for touch typing to be a little bit too tall, with a little bit too much travel for me personally. That may be an advantage for you guys. But for me, it's not my personal preference. So it does have a little bit of wobble on the key. So, a bit of a hit and miss. Overall, it's still perfectly fine to type on. You will get used to it, but it's just not my personal preference to begin with. Now, if we draw attention to the trackpad, the majority of time I spent with this machine, I was using a Bluetooth mouse, but the trackpad itself was perfectly fine, measuring in at around 5 inches wide and a bit over 3 inches tall. So it is quite substantial in size, where that's my hand resting with 4 fingers on there. And there's still plenty of room. The fingerprint scanner I didn't use personally. I didn't really have much need for that. And the clicking of it is perfectly acceptable. Just a simple trackpad. And being 2022, let's have a quick look and see what the webcam's like. Right now I've got the webcam going with the LED light directly above it. With it disconnected, the quality is not really that much better. So overall, the quality is passable, but it's not preferable. So if you want to do streaming on here, you would definitely need to be looking for a different webcam to connect up to this machine. Now let's check out some I/O on here. Along the left-hand side of the machine, we've got 2 audio ports, one being optical. We have a USB 3.2 Gen 2 port, micro SD slot, air vent, and Kensington lock. Along the back, we have the air vent, Thunderbolt, power, HDMI and DisplayPort. And lastly, the other half of the vent. And on the left hand side we have an air vent, gigabit Ethernet, two USB 3.2 Gen 1 ports, and we lastly back around the machine. If we have a look underneath, we can see the downwards facing speakers located here and here. Looking underneath, we can see that there's plenty of room for the laptop to breathe. Inside we can find the downwards facing speakers, which are actually reasonably large and also reasonably decent. Found the quality of them better than expected. We do have one removable battery over here, which is a 600 or 6220 milliamp battery. We have two NVMe slots here, which you can also set up to run in RAID if that's what you prefer. There's also two 8GB DDR4 2666. We have the RTX 3060, which runs up to 105 watts. And under here, we have the i7, which is a 10870H, which is an 8-core 16-thread powerhouse. So overall, pretty decent cooling, pretty decent machine. Next up, let's have a look at the charger. So the charger itself is fairly standard. This one I've seen with quite a few other laptops, the Acer Nitro 5, the MSI Sword 15. They're all made by this company here, and they're all 180 watt chargers. The barrel connection on the end seems to be identical between all of them, so it's a very common charger for most machines in this price range. I mentioned earlier about the control software and the keyboard. Here's another aspect of it, where you got the control center regarding power saving, entertainment, maximum power, and quiet. Where I found if I do stick it on quiet, the games still perform extremely well on here. Where putting it on performance mode does get the fans quite loud. So we'll load up Cyberpunk and we'll check that out. So right now I've got Cyberpunk running in 4K at medium graphics. Granted, if I do drop it down to 2K, it gets around about 60 to 80 FPS in game and handles it quite a bit better. But considering I'm running at 4K, it's strange I'm only using around about 5GB of VRAM. This is usually my benchmark game, so if I want to see how well the machine's truly going to go, this is the first game I would typically load up for that purpose. Also, you do have the option of running it in entertainment mode, where the fan's curvature or the fan speed is turned down. It usually runs a bit better with that, or runs a bit quieter with that. Typically playing an older game like Battlefield 5 or even potentially Call of Duty, you do get a higher FPS than this. This is meant to just stress the machine to the max. But overall, most games it plays, it can handle extremely well, especially with that up to 105 watt 3060. As we can see, we're running at 96 watts, 95 watts up in the top corner, right here. So considering we're running at 4K, it's handling it reasonably well. So my final thoughts on the MetaBox Prime S PC70 DP. This particular one I purchased it second hand, so purchasing it new would give you a completely different price compared to what I paid for it. I paid 1,200 Australian dollars for this one, which if you're a content creator and you required 100% Adobe RGB, it very well may be a steal for you, considering those screens alone seem to range anywhere from about $300 to $500 just for the display. Personally, being someone that would more want to game on the machine than create, I found that the 60Hz panel for me was a bit of a letdown for gaming. The software was a little bit buggy, where certain things wouldn't work, like the keys that I mentioned, but also I do like how I can distinctively control the overall power of the machine and the fan noise with the control panel software. So even though it wasn't working in one aspect, it also works very well in another aspect. I found that the keys themselves were very familiar. I've seen them on the Gigabyte G5 laptop. They were pretty much nearly the identical keys. The feeling of them was very much the same. This one had a slight bit more RGB control, if memory serves me correct. So overall, I found for gaming, decent performance, but also let down by that 60Hz screen. Overall, it's a pretty good all-round machine. It's my first 17.3-inch machine I've had in a long time, in years now. I found that the portability of it did noticeably feel a bit bigger compared to the 15.6-inch machines, but then again, I typically throw that in my 17-inch laptop bag, bring it to work, bring it home. And I find that it's getting around like that is perfectly fine. I'm not sure how it would go being on your back for walking 2-3 k's to work or school. That may be a bit more challenging. Battery life, which I didn't really touch on, I have in other videos on the channel. Regarding the battery life, I think I got up to about 2.5 hours, so enough to watch a movie in battery saving mode. So it's not going to be a great battery life at all, but at least you'll be able to finish watching that movie. Anyway, these have been my thoughts on the MetaBox Prime S. I'll catch you guys later. Bye.